Hi, I'm Meredith Tharapos and I'm here at the Coles Distribution Centre in Melbourne talking to Maddie and Dave. So Maddie and Dave, could I get you to introduce yourselves, please?
Absolutely. So I'm Madison Allen. I'm a safety and sustainability specialist for Coles Supply Chain, and essentially what that means is that I support the business and our supply chain network on any of their sustainability projects, initiatives and sustainability practices for improvement. I also support a range of safety activities as well as part of our strategy.
And hello, I'm Dave Clark, so I help out the business as Head of Safety and Sustainability for Supply Chain.
Okay, thank you Maddie and thank you Dave. Now, could you tell us about some of the sustainability initiatives and practices that you have here at the Distribution Centre?
Absolutely. So here at Coles we do a great number of things in regards to sustainability. So Coles sustainability strategy is underpinned by our Together to Zero Waste, Together to Zero Emissions and our Better Together pillars. As part of that, under our Better Together pillars, we do a lot of work with our community partners, so our food donation partners, including Second Bite, Food Bank and any other food donation partners or community partners. We find that that's a really fantastic way for us to give back to our community with which we operate in, and it really resonates with our team members, especially within the distribution centres, to give back and to be able to support from a not just a corporate perspective, but from a management and a team leadership perspective. So our team really like to get involved when we talk about food donations or any kind of community partnerships that we do. And that includes one of our initiatives that we did in Queensland, which was to get the Endeavour Foundation out to one of our distribution centres. And they were able to, so the Endeavour Foundation support those with disabilities to ensure they can have paid employment with the correct support within the community as well. And what we did there was they were able to sort our milk crates. So when our milk crates come back in with different colours on the same pallet, we can't send those back to the supplier all mixed up. So they have to be divided up into the correct colours, essentially. So our Endeavour team were able to come on site and they can sort through the milk crates, get them out of the house a couple of days a week, get them into paid employment, and they absolutely love coming on site. So that's a couple of our social initiatives as well. And then from a sustainability perspective, for our Together to Zero Waste and Together to Zero Emissions, so Together to Zero Waste, we look at our waste diversion and how we can reduce our impacts on environment. Obviously Coles is a very big employer, a large part of the Australian economy, so we look at how can we minimise our impacts on landfill and divert as much as possible away from landfill into other areas such as cardboard, plastic wrap, any number of waste diversions for recycling, and that can include our activities on rebates, etc., etc. So we do quite a bit of work within our diversion scopes. And then from a Together to Zero emissions perspective, what we look at is new technologies. So what technologies can we put in place that will reduce the emissions that we're currently outputting? Although a number of our activities we can't eliminate emissions completely, so we look at how can we reduce, how can we further technology resources and the scope with which we use to reduce those emissions and the activities that we do, so that we can essentially be more sustainable and have those practices within the DCs.
Thank you. And Dave, what are some initiatives and practices you're involved in?
Sure, yeah, great examples, Maddie. Thank you for the share. So another of the rollouts with our Together to Zero Emissions is really around making sure that we are reducing our demands on the grid with electricity. And so what we're doing is we're rolling out a large-scale DC solar program on the rooftops of our facilities, and those the solar setups will save about 30 to 40% of the electricity usage, which is from the demand of running the DC or the warehouse. So that's important, first of all. So that's a really good news story that it's coming from the roof into the facility that's then using it. The other part about that journey is making sure of the other circa 60% that's not coming from the roof, from the solar as a renewable energy source, we're actually sourcing that upstream from a renewable electricity provider. And that can come from wind farms or a whole range of other particular suppliers. And Coles has those arrangements in place to make sure that we have all of our renewable electricity sourced across our network, across Coles Group, not just Coles Supply Chain, by the end of FY25. So that's not too far away at all, which is very exciting. A few other little parts that we're really proud of to say is around electric vehicles. and decarbonisation across an end-to-end value chain, which is really important. So for today, we've spoken a lot about our distribution centres and the warehouse, but for me, I'm passionate about that end-to-end value chain and making sure that lifeblood of freight coming into our sheds is coming in efficiently and in a decarbonised manner, and of course that lifeblood that's going out of the sheds as well from our DCs to our supermarket stores, who are essentially our customers. So we've got two programs of work here. The first one is about electrifying fleets, and we want to do that through our trusted transport partners as part of our Win Together strategic pillar as part of the Coles Group strategy. And so what we will do, for example, is we will work with partners such as Linfox or Toll, and we'll be electrifying fleets that have the right profile or right delivery profile where they can do a back to base model. So they can be charged at site here, go out and do a delivery to a store, and then they will come back to the DC or the depot, and they can be charged overnight from that renewable energy source that we talked about earlier. So we've got a back-to-base EV model. We will also have longer value chains, which will have electric vehicles once the capability emerges into the market of having electrified fleets going from the likes of Melbourne, where we are today, up to Sydney, for example. But that comes with a little bit of range anxiety, so we have to unpack that more as that innovation really starts to emerge into our business. And then thirdly, and probably the one that I'm most excited about to share, is our journey into hydrogen fuel cells into heavy vehicles across our end-to-end value chain. This is where we really see the future for decarbonisation of heavy vehicle freight, and that's going up from rigid vehicles to semi-trailers to B-doubles or even B-triples. So we want to make sure that we're maximising our freight utilisation. Not only is that good for the environment with decarbonisation, but it's also good with safety, so we're having less heavy vehicle drivers on the road with a frequency of exposure to health and safety impacts, and it's also good for our bottom line. Making sure that we have fewer fuller trucks is really good to make sure that we are managing our commercials to the budgets that we have alluded to in the previous program. I think so. That's the exciting parts there. The other parts that I'm really passionate about with our team, and Maddie shared a little bit about making sure that we're partnering with others to make sure that we have partnerships with the communities that we operate within. We do a little bit of that work going to do volunteer days, and we do that at specific regional centres as well. So we want to make sure that we are doing that broadly at an organisational level, and you'll see that with the Fight MND campaigns about fighting motor neurons disease, which is really, really close to our group's heart. But additionally, we also want to give back to smaller community centres as well, and to go in to help out with food relief at sort of centres where we have people that are really at a crisis level and those that are desperately in need. And we want to make sure that we are front and centre to go in and help out, not only with the food supplies to serve to them, but actually just a bit of a nice warming smile, and just to check in to see how they're going and ask them, are they okay, and what else can we do to help provide support functions to them. And finally, it's really the final one, which is really close to my heart, is a program that Coles Supply Chain is a founding member of, and we're on the board of Healthy Heads in Trucks and Sheds. So I hope you like that jingle. And it has an acronym of HHTS, so it's Healthy Heads in Trucks and Sheds. And it's really about making sure that we have mental fitness at the forefront of our mind in our facilities. And we'd use that term specifically, which is mental fitness, because mental health can come with a bit of a taboo a lot of the time. And people think about that as someone at a crisis level. Mental fitness for us, and the way that we talk about it in our vocabulary, is a bit of a continuum from about 0 to 10. And that person that's at 0 may be at a crisis level at 0, 1 or 2 or 3. And those like we are today, or how I feel doing this interview today, I'm around a 9 or a 10. I'm very energised, and my energy levels are very good, and I've got a really good well-being level. So it's about how do we make sure that we have the right interventions in place, not only for our team members which are inside our warehouses, but those, as we talked about earlier, that are bringing freight into or out of the business, and making sure that we're checking in with them to ask, are you okay? How can we make sure that they're having a better day today than what they were having yesterday, and checking in with them consistently, and having pragmatic practices in place as part of a planned structure in each financial year, that we have key deliverables to truly have an impact that makes our workplace a better place for our frontline operators.
And that would be closely linked to safety
Absolutely, yeah. So that's a key strategic pillar in
Yeah.
our safety plan.
Yeah.
And so our safety plan is a safety, health and wellbeing plan. So I guess I've talked a little bit about health and wellbeing there, and that's a great segue into the safety stream. So for us in a supply chain setting, we have a slightly different risk profile to a Coles supermarket, for example. So for us, we have a program around critical risk reduction. And so critical risk for us is on-road traffic incidents, cars striking trucks or trucks rolling over, etc. Some big bad stuff. But what do we do to make sure that we're reducing them over a period of time so it's sustainable and it's embedded change over the life cycle of our business? We also have high bays in our DCs or our warehouses where we have pallets that weigh approximately 1 tonne, 1.5 tonne, which is about the same weight as a Toyota Corolla. And if that comes out of the racking, that is an absolute catastrophic incident for team members that are working in the local area and can result in fatal consequences. So we're really passionate about making sure that we have leader-led safety. And that is really important for us because we have 24/7 operations, and safety professionals like Maddie and myself, we can't be on shift 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So we really need to empower and win the hearts and minds of our frontline leaders to be active safety champions across day shift, afternoon shift and night shift. And that's really important because we need to have trust in our team to uphold those standards and to make sure that we are meeting not only the legislative and regulatory components, but actually improving our business as a better place to work every day and making us an employer of choice. Because, you know, as a parent, for example, if you have a young child emerging into their first career or their first job, that's really important about having that peace of mind that you're a trusted employer and organisation that value safety, and you actually want to upskill and promote their safety culture as a frontline leader and give them future skills for their own careers, but also making sure their day-to-day functional role where they're learning those skills, that they're keeping not only themselves but their teammates safe around them.
Yeah, excellent comments and fabulous initiatives across a huge array of areas. And could you tell me about how these sustainability initiatives are conveyed, like the results of these are conveyed both to your internal and external stakeholders?
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do quite a bit of work with both internal and external stakeholders. From a sustainability perspective, there's any number of people that we need to be touching base with on almost a daily or at least a weekly basis. So we do a lot of work with our waste contractor, which is Cleanaway, and we're almost in contact with them pretty much every day. We essentially every month we get a report through from them, an Excel spreadsheet, as we know and love, and that details every piece of data that we require, every bit of waste that goes through our DCs that's been picked up, weighed, what waste stream that goes through, the servicing requirements for it, and then we can funnel down from that to understand what are the impacts for our DC. So what is our diversion score? How could we have done better? What were the immediate withdrawals or product withdrawals that we've had come through? And so there's quite a bit of data and insights that can come from that, and that's part of our work with our internal stakeholders to talk through how can we improve for next month, essentially. So whilst it's almost a lag indicator to say this is what we've done for the last month, what can we do to improve next month, our teams, they have really broadened their information and knowledge within sustainability to look at how can we improve, so how can we minimise our impacts to landfill and general waste. And then from an external stakeholder perspective, it gives us the opportunity to have the background and the knowledge to talk through what improvements can we put in place. Are we working at the best of our ability or our most efficient or our best utilisation rates, essentially? So we work very closely with all of our waste providers and contractors, even our internal central sustainability teams, to say, well, what at DCs are we doing? What could be a gap or what could be an opportunity that we can improve on going forward? And, you know, we're supply chain and distribution centre operators, so being in the waste or sustainability metrics are not exactly our bread and butter or have not been our bread and butter. So that's been a learning curve for us, especially over the last probably 12 months for to be able to support the Coles sustainability strategy. And now we've really embedded a lot of those activities within our internal stakeholders. So we have a lot of our DC teams that will reach out to externals such as Cleanaway or Food Bank and Second Bite and say, well, hey, this pickup doesn't look quite right. So where's the gap coming from? Or where's our opportunity for improvement, essentially?
And just to add to Maddie's comments there as well, so the question that our executives and our directors ask is around the so what, or the what now. So I've got a dashboard which Maddie talked about, and we've got some great insights. But insights on a page can actually confuse the audience, and we need to make sure that the audience has the ability, firstly, to interpret the data and hope that it's interpreted the correct way that the sender intended it to be received. And so you can't run a business on hope. So how do we make sure that the insights are purposeful? And that's the so what. What are we doing with this now? So what we're really doing is equipping our frontline leaders that Maddie talked about earlier, and making sure that that narrative about what do we do with this to positively impact change for our future business operations is very clear. And what we should do is, if we have a dashboard with outlier data, is put a circle around that particular outlier, and that has to have a direct correlation to a specific actions or actions. And so that way, the audience is very clear about, okay, cool, I can see my dashboard, I can see my data sets, I think this is the message that's been interpreted, but actually, just to confirm, here's the outlier, it's been circled and highlighted, and it has a direct correlation to further action. So I think that's really important. Two final things that I'll wrap up on about data and reporting is make sure that the data going in is accurate. So we need to have trust in our data. So I think that's really important. So it's a trust but verify model with us. So make sure that you have trust in the data, but go and verify. That's really important. And to make sure, if you're going to hold senior business leaders accountable to some data, and especially if it's attached to their income stream or their bonuses example, then they will want to make sure that that data is rock solid. So I think that's a really important takeaway that I'd love to share about data integrity. And the other part that I wanted to wrap up on was around governance and auditing. So this is really important about making sure that you've got prudent, accurate data, is because not only one is it needs to be the right input stream coming in, so then we can have the right decision making by our frontline leaders, but also it needs to be audited for governance as well. So when we're reporting this to our shareholders in the market, it needs to be going through the right correct layers of commercial auditing frameworks through our partners such as Ernst & Young, for example, to make sure that it is validated and rock solid and truthful for our market disclosures.
So it's a huge area, sustainability, and really underpinned by solid, clean data that has been verified and checked thoroughly. It's about then using that with budgets and numbers and accountability associated with that, because people are responsible for that, and then using that to inform your decision making around sustainability.
That's correct, yes.
Yeah.
And we also see quite a number of savings from a sustainability efficiency perspective, which I don't think many people realise how much you can save by being well versed in your sustainability practices. So initially, when we were looking into waste diversion, etc., and you bring up the word sustainability, everyone kind of sees dollar signs and thinks, oh no, we don't have the funding for it, or we're not looking to do that, or how much is this going to cost me, essentially. But what we've actually found, especially over the last 8 months, as we've delved really closely into our data and that data integrity, is there's cost savings that can be found within it. There, like with everything, there's always a more expensive pathway you can follow, or there's a cheap pathway you can follow. We call it getting the Ferrari or getting the Toyota Corolla. And most of the time you can get the souped up Toyota Corolla so that it works quite well for you, but it still looks good, it smells good, but it's still going to meet your cost and serviceability.
Yeah.
Maybe not smell good because it's waste diversion,
right.
but
It gets us from A to B.
It gets us from A to B.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that creativity with thinking differently about sustainability is really important. And I know you talked about the different packaging and the collapsible crates that go out to farmers. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? We saw that out in the
Yeah,
percent?
it's a fantastic initiative within Coles as as part of our returnable assets stream. So what we do as a part of that is returnable plastic crates. So what we call RPCs. We have a team that manages our assets within that stream. It's a very big piece of work, and it's another initiative that we looked at from a cost savings perspective, but actually we've had really great sustainability successes from that as well. So essentially, to describe what it is that you've got a box of blueberries with 6 to 8 to 12 punnets within them, and instead of having that cardboard box, we've converted supplies over to a returnable plastic crate, which is a very similar size black crate, which is reusable. So where you previously had the cardboard box, which once it's used, it would hopefully go within a cardboard compactor and get recycled, although that's not always the case, we are aware. Now you've got a reusable plastic crate. So it can go from supplier into DCs, where it then goes out to stores. After it leaves stores, from a return logistics perspective, gets washed appropriately, and then can be returned to DCs or returned to the supplier. And so once it has been used at stores, it's collapsible, and it saves on space as well. And from a sustainability perspective, we're able to take tonnes out of general waste, tonnes out of cardboard compactors. We save many kilolitres of water from this initiative as well, and it reduces our emissions from that perspective, and it also offsets the planting of trees. So there's a number of sustainability benefits that we receive from that, and it's a great example of the work that we do within Coles to think outside the box, especially within supply chain. So there's no linear pathway of thinking within supply chain. If you change one thing, you change 40 million touch points. So we need to make sure it works at every avenue, and that's that end-to-end value chain that we see as well.
And Maddie and Dave, could you tell me how you report sustainability externally?
We do a number of things within Coles to be able to report our sustainability initiatives and KPIs, or key performance indicators, externally. One example is our sustainability report. So we release that on a yearly basis, dependent on the financial year calendar, as Coles likes to do. And we include in that a number of initiatives, especially focusing around what are our consumers asking from us from a sustainability perspective. So as we've seen, a lot of people are asking around packaging, what is Coles doing essentially to minimise this or to look into this sustainability area. So we receive a number of pieces of feedback from our consumers and our customers to say, this is where my focus is from a sustainability perspective, and what are you, as one of the largest employers in Australia, doing to address that. And we've got a couple of initiatives, including our EV yard tug and our backhaul Coles Collect utilisation, which I think Dave's happy to talk about.
Sure, yeah, thank you, Maddie. So the first one is an electric vehicle yard tug, or a yard tractor. And hopefully you'll see some footage come up now around the electric vehicle yard tractor. And that moves trailers around our DC yard in an efficient manner, so it frees up prime movers which should be delivering freight on a public road network, and allows trailers to move on dock or off dock in the DC yard in a sustainable manner. So typically that vehicle was powered by diesel, and part of our decarbonisation strategy is to move to electrified or hydrogen fuel cells in heavy vehicle assets. So that yard tug will have an electric vehicle, and that's powered by a renewable energy source, and that's a great example about how we're making sure that we have safe, sustainable operations embedded into our network, and that we roll that out in a scalable manner across our network after we trial it at a few pilot centres first to prove the technology as an emerging technology into our business, make sure it meets all the right criteria from ethical sourcing, safety and commercials, and then once we are settled with the business case and it's endorsed and approved by senior management, then we would scale that out to the network across our national footprint. The second example, thanks Maddie, is around our Coles Collect backhaul network. And so Coles Collect operates within Coles Transport. It's not Click and Collect, it's Coles Collect. And so they're an aggregator or a freight forwarder. And what they do is they make sure that we have efficient freight operations in our heavy vehicle network. And so for some examples about how we've been growing our backhaul strategy, in the past we would have seen our freight move from a DC to a store as a full truckload load, it would get to the store and unload the freight, and then it would move back to the DC, and that would be a futile load. And what I mean by that is the truck would come back empty. And so you can tell quite quickly that that's quite inefficient. And so in our new backhaul model, what we would like to do, and what we are doing, is we are moving freight from the DC to the store, doing the store unload, and then we are rerouting the truck to a primary producer or a manufacturer or supplier that's in the same suburb or adjacent region to go up and pull to pick up a full truckload of goods and bring that back in. So what we're doing now is creating that triangle to bring the freight back in, and that way we're basically halving our freight costs because we're saving that futile load from coming in. And that's really important, once again, not only from a commercial perspective, but also reduces our frequency of exposure with heavy vehicle related safety incidents. And also for those vehicles that aren't on a renewable energy source yet, we're helping to decarbonise by removing futile loads out of the work environment of heavy vehicles operating between DCs to stores and suppliers.
Yeah, and fabulous examples of sustainability practices and initiatives that are really embedded into your ways of working here at the distribution centre. Thank you, Maddie, and thank you, Dave, for your insights today on sustainability and the way it's reported. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.